We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Gimel Amid Beis in Meseches Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 43b. And the previous Amid, the Gemara was asking on Rabbi Yossi's position in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi seems to say that Erusin is a problem in a situation of Avelos, in the 30 days of Avelos, of the Almana, of the widow for her husband. And the Gemara tries to argue that's not the case. And so the Gemara now changes and says that Rabbi Yossi is actually talking about the fact that you can't have a Nisuin. He's not talking about Erusin at all. And the Gemara continues, V'lesle the Rabbi Yossi lahavchin. And Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of this concept over here that the reason for this is to distinguish and to know which father rather this child was from. As Rashi over here says, Really, the statement of Rabbi Yossi was all women can get married, can have nisuin, except for the almana. For Rabbi Yossi, lo ibul asal ashmin. And according to this approach, Rabbi Yossi is not coming to tell us a chiddush about avelos at all. To v'nisuin, afilu Rabbi Yehuda moda do aser b'mei evil. Everybody agrees, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that by nisuin, while the woman is an avelos, it's a problem. Da simchi, because that's certainly a simcha. Elo yinasu asal ashmin, and rather, Rabbi Yossi is coming to teach us the concept of yinasu itself. Upalagad Rabbi Yehuda is actually arguing on Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Kala Nesuos Yasar. So Rabbi Yehuda said that if a woman was married, she can have eris in it without waiting 3 months. The Yasar Rabbi Yossi Lameimar, and Rabbi Yossi is saying no. Afila Nesuos Yinasu. Even when it comes to someone who's a Nesua, the marriage, even someone who is a Nesua, Kala Nashim Yinasu, even they are allowed to get married, and you don't have to worry at all about distinguishing between who the child is from, the first husband or the second. V'gimel machlokas b'davar. According to this approach, it's a 3-way machlokas. The Tanakama Asar Afilu Arusos Leoris. Tanakama is the most strict. He says even if she's only an arusa from the first husband, she has to wait 3 months, even just for erusin. The gazru arusas rishonat nesua, because they make a gezerah by the first situation of erusin because of nesuin. The gazrinon erusin da'achron atu nesuin da'achron, and they also make a gezerah of erusin to the second husband because of nesuin. In other words, they treat erusin the same as nesuin. You have to wait 3 months. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Rabbi Yehuda holds on nesuas yisar. So no, if they're married, they can do erusin because again, there's not going to be a concern of mixing up the child. Below gazer erusin. Nisuin. They don't make a gezerah by erusin because of nisuin. V'arusas yinasuin. Let's say she was an erusin to the first husband, she can get married to the second within 3 months. V'lo gazer arusa atu nesua. They don't make a gezerah of arusa atu nesua. Avalav chana miya islay, but he still is concerned about the issue of discerning who this child is from. Unesua lo tinase. So if she was married to the first husband, she can't go get married to the second within 3 months. Rabbi Yossi afilu have chana lesle. Now Rabbi Yossi, he doesn't even hold the concept of avchana. That's why he says even a woman who is married to the first husband can marry a second husband within 3 months. The Gemara continues, and the Bach puts in the words Iba Yisema over here. Iba Yisema Leslie. If we want, we could say this answer again. Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of the whole concept of Lahavchin. Or we can answer that no, really Rabbi Yossi does hold of Lahavchin. And here's how you should understand Rabbi Yossi. Ve'ema Rabbi Yossi Omer. It should be as follows. Rabbi Yossi says, Kol Arusos Gurushos Yinasu. All the Arusos, if they are divorced, so they can get married again since they were only in Erusin. There's no concern you'll get confused in terms of who the child is from. But the Gemara says, if so, if that's all he's saying, Hainu Rabbi Yehuda, isn't that exactly the same as what Rabbi Yehuda is saying? And so the Gemara says, no, Ika Benayu, there's a difference between them. Nesua leyaris. Let's say she's a Nesua. Can she have Erusin? Rabbi Yehuda Savar Nesua Muteres leyaris. According to this approach, Rabbi Yehuda will hold a Nesua is allowed to have Erusin within 3 months. Rabbi Yossi Savar Nesua Asura leyaris. But Rabbi Yossi will hold that a Nesua is not allowed to have Erusin within 3 months. We'll take a look at Rashi over here. According to this approach, he is saying nisuin, but that's only true if she was an erusin with the first husband. Arusos koi. All arusos who are divorced, they can get married within 3 months. Chutz min arusas almonos, except for if she's a widow, machmas evil. That, of course, is a problem of avelus. Well, the Kaman Parach, but the Gemara will later ask, Michael evil arusa. Is there a situation, or is there even a concept of avelus if she was only had an erusin with the first husband? The Gemara says, Ihachi hainu Rabbi Yehuda, but the Gemara says if that's all he's talking about, so that's the same thing as Rabbi Yehuda. If you're talking about a woman who is an erusin that she can have nisuin after, that's what Rabbi Yehuda said. To Rabbi Yehuda nami shari arusa linase. Rabbi Yehuda also allowed an arusa to get married. Now you can't say that Rabbi Yossi is teaching us the chiddush about avelus. The nisuin aser kol lamed yom, that nisuin is also for 30 days because of avelus. Because that also everyone agrees that nisuin is a simcha. Obviously Rabbi Yehuda is going only on a divorcee. The Veleko evil comer, where there's no situation of Avelus. And so the Gemara then says, Ika beinayu nesua leyaris. No, there is a machlokas here. Let's say she was a nesua, could she have erisin? To come Rav Yehuda hanesuos yisarsu. Rav Yehuda says she could have erisin. To lo gazer erisin atu nesuin. It doesn't make a gazer by erisin because of nesuin. V'yasar Rav Yossi lemeimar kol arusos grushos yinasu. And Rav Yossi is saying, look, if she was an erisin first, then she can get married right away. Hoel veleko ibul shari, since there's no avelus permitted. Umisham havchana lo mitzvah, and we're not worried about havchana to distinguish where the child is from. To alav muberesi, because she's not pregnant, she was only in this particular case, she was only an arusa. V'arusa atu nesua lo gazrin, and we don't make a gazer of arusa atu nesua. Avol nesuos lo yesarsu. But Rav Yossi does say that if she was married to the first husband, she shouldn't get erisin, she shouldn't have erisin within 3 months. Because we are concerned maybe she is pregnant from the first husband. V'sharis lo lesaris asilin suvi, and allow her to have erisin, then maybe she'll end up actually getting married, and that could cause problems. But the Gemara continues, V'savar Rav Yossi nesua asura le'ares. But is that really true? Does Rav Yossi really hold a woman who's a nesua is not allowed to have erisin? Vatanya, but we learned in a brayso, Rav Yossi, Omer Rav Yossi says, Kol hanoshim yisarsu, all women can have erisin, chutz min halmon, except for the widow, mimneho ibel, because of the issue of avelus. V'kama ibel shalon, how long is the avelus? Shloshim yom, it's 30 days. V'kulon lo yinasu ad shiyu lahen gimel chadashim. And then it finishes off that he says that they shouldn't get married, they shouldn't have nesuin unless they wait 3 months. So it seems pretty clear from this brayso, Kol hanoshim, all women can have the erisin. So it seems to be even a nesua can have the erisin within 3 months. And the Gemara says, hi, my question. What kind of question is this? If you're saying it's because the language of all women can have erisin, that's not such a question. Is that any stronger than the way our Mishnah phrased it? Because we changed the Mishnah, and we said, no, the Mishnah should be understood that when you're talking about an arusa, the arusa grusha, so she's allowed to get married. So hachanami, so here also that's what it means. Kol arusos gurushos yinasu. You could say the same thing. It means all the arusos, when they have a divorce, so then they're allowed to get married after, since they were only arusa to the first husband. So that wouldn't be a question. So what is the question? Elami seifa. Rather, the question that we're asking really is from the seifa. To katani v'kulam lo yinasu ad shulan gimel chadashim. It says they can't get married in terms of nesuin. You can't do till 3 months. So in suvehu delo, so you make a diak. It sounds like marriage is a problem. Hoyisruse shaper dami. It sounds like erisin is not a problem. And so the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Torah tzvei mahachi. Here's how you should answer up and read this brayso. Rabbi Yossi Omer, read the brayso as follows. Rabbi Yossi says, Kol arusos gurushos yinosu. All arusos who are divorced, they can get married. Chutz min almona mimneho ibul. Except for an almona, she has an issue because of avelus. V'kamo ibul shalosh shloshim yom. And how long is the avelus? 30 days. Unesuos lo yesarsu. And then you should read as follows. Those who are nesuos, they should not have erisin ad sheyeh lohen shlosha chadashim, until they wait for 3 months. And according to that reading, it is clear again, according to Rabbi Yossi, that the nesuos, they also have to wait 3 months to do erisin. But the Gemara continues, Valmona min ha'erisin mi'is la'ibul. But 1 second, as we said, as Rashi said, an almona from erisin, if she only had an erisin with the husband and then he died, is there any concept of avelus in that case? V'atani Rabbi Chia, but didn't Rabbi Chia teach? V'atani Rabbi Chia barami, didn't Rabbi Chia barami teach? Ishto arusa, if he had a wife but it was just an erisin, so lo onen v'lo metame lo, so you don't have the halachas of onen, he doesn't become tamei to her. V'chein he, and also her, lo onenis v'lo metame lo, she doesn't have aninus, and she's not metame to him. Mesa Eino Yorsha, let's say she dies, so he doesn't inherit her. Mesu, but if he dies, Govik Subasa, she collects the ksuba. But in any case, you see clearly over here, there's no avelus when it comes to a woman who's an arusa. When it comes to a marriage, rather, to a situation of arusa. And Rashi over here explains, first, Torah tzvei mahachi, devadai seifa nesuin koi kedekarma, the seifa is talking about nesuin, umiu lo tisni lo yinasu, ela lo yisarsu. And it's saying in that situation, they can't have the erisin like we said in Rabbi Yossi, according to this answer. And then we said velo metame, in situations of erisin, they're not metame one to the other. Kilomar ina mitzuva lasasik, but what that just means is there's no command, they're not obligated to deal with the mace, because they were only married at the erisin stage, they weren't yet at the nesuin stage, govik subasa, but it did say that she does collect her ksuba from erisin, who could go into kasav la mina erisin. That would just be in a case where he writes her ksuba already at the stage of erisin. And so the Gemara continues and rejects this answer and says, Ela tanoihi, rather it's actually a machlokas tanoim. The original question on Rabbi Yossi was that why is Rabbi Yossi saying that there's an issue over here of Erusin in the time of Avelis? Isn't Erusin permitted during the Shloshim of Avelis for the husband? And the Gemara now says, no, that's actually a Machlokas Tanoim. The Tanya, because we learned in a Brayso, me Rosh Chodesh, Viad HaTainis from Rosh Chodesh until the Tainis, talking about Tisha B'Av, Ha'am Matin, Me'eskein, Miliso, Militin, Milivnos, Vilintoa, Umeleares, Umilisa. So he says the people have to minimize the amount of business that they do, like we said, and from building, and from planting, and from Erusin, and from getting married. Shabbos, Shechol, Tisha B'Av, Besocha, now the week that Tisha B'Av falls out in that week, Asr, L'Saper, L'Chabes, it's going to be Asr to get haircuts and to do laundry. V'yesh Omrim Kol HaChodesh Asr, and some say the entire month is Asr. And Rashi over here says, Ela Tanoihi, Ela Liolam Kedukatani Masnisin Kol HaNoshim Yisarsu. Learn the way the Mishnah is actually written. It's talking about the fact that the women can have Erusin, and that's permitted. You don't have to wait 3 months for Erusin. Uchid and Bereish Maitin, like we explained originally. Danasuas Kai, we're talking about married women. V'ibolike Benai, when really he is coming to teach us a chiddush about Avelis. V'ashminan de Erusin b'mei Avel Asr, and it's saying that you're not allowed to have an Erusin during the time of Avelis. Udekashalach Kodem Hazman. Now you had a kasha that it sounds like again before Tisha B'Av during that time period that you are allowed to have Erusin. It's not really prohibited. So Tanoi, it's actually Machlokas Tanoi. De'ikol amanda asar. There is somebody who says it is forbidden to have Erusin in this time period. Vahid katani marsin lav divrei hakoli. Not everybody agrees to this idea that you're allowed to have Erusin during this time of Avela. Velosfir like Rabbi Yossi, and therefore it doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. Not everybody agrees to this position of Rabbi Yossi. There are those who disagree, but again, there are those who say that Erusin is a problem, just like Rabbi Yossi says, and Rabbi Yossi is following that position. And just to clarify over here, the question on Rabbi Yossi was that we said that the Kodem de Kodem, meaning the time period before the week before Tisha B'Av, we said before that it's mutter to have Erusin, and that was a question on Rabbi Yossi's position that you were not allowed to have Erusin in the Shloshim. And here we're saying, no, there's an opinion that says that in this time period before the week before Tisha B'Av, that it actually is prohibited to have Erusin, and that again would be in accordance with Rabbi Yossi's position. But the Gemara continues, Maskif lo Ravashi. Ravashi asks the following question: Mimai de leyares mamish. How do you know that in this brayso over here, when it talks about the fact that leyares, that Erusin is prohibited, how do you know we're even talking about Erusin? Dilma lemievad sudas Erusin hudaser. Maybe we're talking about in this brayso the meal of the Erusin, and that's a problem. Haleyares shaper dami. But again, maybe Erusin is perfectly okay, and that would be a question on Rabbi Yossi. Again, Rabbi Yossi was saying that in the Shloshim period, when she's mourning for her husband, the Erusin is not permitted due to the Avelos, and we wanted to bring this brisa to show that there's an opinion that agrees with Rabbi Yossi and says that Erusin is prohibited, but maybe it's just talking about the Su'udas Erusin that's prohibited. It's not talking about the actual Erusin. But the Gemara says, one second, Ihachi, if so, Milisa, when it says also in this brisa talks about the fact they can't get married, Linose Nami Lemiavet Sudas Nisuin Hudas, are you going to say also that the Nisuin means only the meal of the Nisuin is a problem? Halisa Shaper Dami, would you say that Nisuin is okay during this time period before Tisha B'Av? Of course not. So clearly the word Lisa means Nisuin, because Nisuin is a problem. So Learis means Erusin, and it shows that there is an opinion again that Erusin is a problem. But the Gemara says, no, Hachiashta, what kind of comparison is this? Bishlam Nisuin below Su'uda Ika Simcha. I understand if you have a Nisuin without a meal, that's for sure Simcha, that's going to be a problem. Ela Erusin below Su'uda Mi Ika Simcha. But again, if you have Erusin without a meal, is that really a Simcha? Why should that be prohibited? So again, we're back to our question, why would Rabbi Yossi say that Avelos would make Erusin a problem? But the Gemara then answers, no, Elamar Avashi, rather Avashi says a very simple answer, Shani Avelos Chadosha me Avelos Yeshani. You can't compare new Avelos from old Avelos. In other words, you can't compare Avelos over the Beis HaMikdash to a situation over here of Avelos because her husband died. Veshani Avelos derab me Avelos deyachid. You can't compare the Avelos of the public, again, referring to Tisha B'Av kind of Avelos, from the Avelos of the individual when her husband dies, and therefore it's quite possible that Rabbi Yossi is saying these kinds of Avelos are different, and we are strict. We don't allow Erusin when it comes to a situation where she's mourning over her husband. And Rashi over here explains, Ravashi lo tukma ketanoi. Don't say that the reason why Rabbi Yossi is because it's a machlokas tanoim and he's following one tana. But Rabbi Yossi moda by hidamarsin. Rabbi Yossi might admit by this Tisha B'Av case that Erusin's okay. With the kasha lach kal v'chomer, your kasha from the kal v'chomer from the previous summit. Shani ben avelos chadasha the Tisha B'Av the have avelos yeshana ve'avelos derabim hilkach chila. You can't compare again avelos chadasha to a situation of Tisha B'Av. It could be that it's more lenient again in the situation of Tisha B'Av. And therefore, again, over here, Rabbi Yossi will prohibit. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Arba Achin Nesuin Arba Nashim. Let's say you have 4 brothers, they're married to 4 women. Vamesu, and they die, and so now there are still other brothers remaining to do Yibum. Imratza Gadol Shabem Liyavim Es Kulon Harashus Biyado. If the oldest of the brothers wants to have Yibum with all 4 women, he's allowed to do that. Mishaya Nasui L'Shtei Nashim. Let's say a person's married to 2 women. Vames, and he dies. Biyaso Chalitzasa Shalachas Mehen. If you do Yibum or you do Chalitza with one of those 2 wives, Potera Sarasa, that patters the co-wife. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Dalid Amud Aleph.